Hey, Patrick, how you doing?
Hey, Michael J. I'm pretty good. A whole bunch of my friends just smashed a Pro Tour real quick.
Yeah?
Yeah, love it.
A couple of weeks ago, I was just like, hey, this mono red deck looks pretty good, and I just really super underestimated that statement. Like, wow!
Yeah, sure enough, Ramunap Ruins, man, you were right, though. Like, this mono red deck is for real.
It's weird, like, just not even 3 weeks. I think it's like only 2 weeks since that debut at the Star City Open. I mean, we were discussing what the correct distribution of Reality Smashers and Glory Bringers at the 5 was. I mean,
well, no. That's for a little bit different of an archetype. This new Ramunap Red is not the same as that deck.
I know. I'm just saying this. I mean, this deck is something else. I think it's fun to play. It's obviously really powerful. I mean, let's just talk about that actually. What's up with this deck? It is because even amongst the top 8 from the Pro Tour, and there were many copies of this red deck in the top 8. There's quite a bit of variation, right?
Yeah, there's a little bit of variation. Like, there's kind of a basic build that I think was popular online, and a lot of people strayed from it in different directions. Like the sort of archetypal build here, I think, is it's kind of tough because they all kind of blur in different directions. But I think that the most baseline version is probably like Seth Manfield and Felix Leon played.
Yeah, I would say like neither Sam's deck nor Peavy's deck. It would be the deck that I would say is near the center, right? For different reasons. Like if you look at, let's start with Seth's deck, right? He's got 23 lands in the main deck, including 8 deserts and a Seagate Wreckage. But I think the differentiating thing on Seth's build is all the non-creature cards that he's got. So he's got 23 beaters, but he's got 2 Shocks, 4 Abrades, 4 Incendiary Flow, and 2 Collective Defiance, in addition to 2 copies of Chandra Torch of Defiance. So there's like many spells in this deck, and like for this archetype anyway, only a medium number of creatures at 23.
Right, yeah. Felix is actually, I didn't even notice. I think you're right. Seth, the fact that he's got these Chandras, the 2 Chandras, as a little bit of a variation, and not as many creatures as some of the other people. Like we see Felix here playing 26, just playing more of everything, whereas Seth is not on the Village Messenger plan,
Yeah,
like that's the big difference. His Village Messenger is Bomat Couriers 5 through 8.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big questions: is Village Messenger or Soulscar Mage, or it doesn't look to me that there's any Soulscar Mages in Felix's deck, right?
No, right.
And then, some people have as many as 4 copies of Soulscar Mage. So just to cut to the chase on that one, personally, I think that if you're going to play a red deck right now, some variation on one of these decks from the top 8, Soulscar Mage is deceptively a really important drop. Personally, I don't like it very much, just playing it straight up. There's relatively few ways to trigger it in these decks, but in a sideboarded game, if you have Soulscar Mage and you draw Chandra's Defeat, it gives you a straight-up way to stop somebody else's Hazoret, which is like the big breaker in the matchup, right? Like, it's almost impossible to stop just straight up. You could get your own Hazoret and block maybe. But, Hazoret advantage, Hazoret first, Hazoret faster is something that is really, really compelling, especially in the mirror match. And I think Soulscar Mage gives you a thing. Now, nobody's saying this is the best thing, but there's relatively few answers at all.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not on the Soulscar Mage plan here. I think that you just don't have enough ways to trigger it, which is, that is the thing you pointed out. But, like, I think that you're just really not going to have a bunch of burn to use to shrink Hazoret. You're going to use it on the other creatures. You're not going to be able to just hang out.
Well, a Chandra's Defeat can just do it, though. That's the thing. Like, it's enough just in that one mana. That's why I think that combo is potentially really strong. Especially, just look at Seth's deck, right? He's got 2 Soulscar Mage. I mean, his deck is spell heavy, right? He's got only 23 creatures, so by definition, he has more potential ways to trigger the Soulscar Mage than some of the other decks. But he's also...
Well, no. It's not just creatures, though. Because obviously he's also... Like, his Chandras, for instance, can trigger it.
Yeah. But then he's also got 3 copies of Chandra's Defeat. Some of these decks have as few as 0 copies of Chandra's Defeat in the sideboard. If you're going to start on, similar to Seth's deck, you have... It's just a different baseline. I think that these decks share so many cards overlapping, but the details are actually pretty compelling in them, in my opinion.
Yeah. I do agree with that. Same argument, opposite conclusion. I think the details are really important. And so I like the direction that Paulo went. First of all, having a little bit of extra mana. And then second of all, I like Scavenger Grounds. And I know that this past weekend, the format kind of like adjusted back for the God Pharaoh's Gift stuff. But I just think Scavenger Ground is an underrated card in the abstract, like just in general. And I also just think that I don't know, with so much mono red around, I feel like I'd rather be slightly bigger than the other mono reds,
Yeah, so Paulo's deck is like, I think we would have called it like kind of we need a kind of a stompy deck relative to these more red aggro or even Sly versions. But his deck is very, very different because he's got 4 Abrades in the main deck, no incendiary flows. So this deck has, a greater ability to deal with, let's say, somebody else's Aethersphere Harvester, which is a potentially devastating card in this matchup, but, less face burn. Same token, he has 26 creatures, which is more than Seth, and yet has 24 lands, which is, let's say, way more than Sam.
Cartouche Zeal is the thing Sam's got. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just say, yeah. So, if you, just on the note of Scavenger Grounds, he's got 2 Scavenger Grounds, 4 Ramunap Ruins, and 4 Sunscorched Desert. So, Paulo's got, I think, the most deserts, along with the most lands in the top 8. But it goes beyond just the ability to go to Ramunap Ruins. So, we should actually dwell on that for a second. But I just wanted to point something out. If you go to Paulo's sideboard, he's got 2 copies of Sand Strangler. Strangler,
which I love.
I tested a lot of mono red this weekend, including sideboarded games. My goodness, that card is a devastating card in a lot of matchups in Standard. It's like Flame Tongue Kavu with more toughness, no drawback, and it's weird to me that this card is so compelling, but it is really good. A 3/3 body is actually, in the matchups where you want it, it seems a little expensive, but it does what you want, and it's there, and the deserts trigger it, and I can't say enough about Sand Strangler. I was really, really pleasantly surprised playing that card.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that was a fantastic piece of technology. And the combination of both how good it is against the mirror, because like the 3/3 body outclasses most of the creatures on the other side of the table while also killing anything, right? Like, but except short of a Hazaret. But then the other side of it is the Sand Strangler also against black-green, I think is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it drops the Lightning Constrictor.
Absolutely, and they're just so loaded on fatal pushes and grasps or whatever, right? Having stuff that's going to survive a potential sweeper, having stuff that can get you value against somebody who's 1-for-1 trading. I think that's fantastic technology and an excellent reason to go to 10 deserts instead of 8.
Yeah, just looking at Paulo's deck, though, I mean, obviously he won the Pro Tour, amazing performance, now a 2-time Pro Tour champion, along with being, what is this, his 12th top 8, and, already a Hall of Famer, yada, yada, yada. All those things are great. If it's me and I'm looking at what I'm going to do next weekend and I might want to key on mono red, there are a lot of 4s in this deck. That's the thing that I'd just be a little apprehensive about. He's got 2 copies of Chandra Torch of Defiance in the main deck along with 3 Hazarets, but then his sideboard has got like more Chandras, and he's got, Sand Strangler. Glorybringer's even more expensive than that. Talk to me about this. The curve is a little chunky, I think, around 4 and 5.
I don't know. When you're playing the sideboarded games and you want to slow it down, I mean, he's also got all these land. I don't know. I don't know that this is too many 4s and 5s.
No, I don't know. I apologize. I didn't mean to imply it's too many. I'm saying, like, this is something that I'm raising my eyebrow at, right?
Oh, that's the thing I like about it, is that it's the red deck to be slightly bigger than the other red decks. That, and he's playing 4 Abrade. I think that not playing 4 Abrade is crazy.
You mean not playing 4 Abrade in the main deck, or not playing 4 Abrade between main deck and sideboard?
I mean, in the format. Whatever colors you're playing.
4 Abrade. I
would not play a deck this weekend without 4 Abrades.
So, I'll tell you a funny story. Last Friday, I had no plans, and Landy Ho, your friend of mine, was like, "Hey, you want to play F&M?" And I'm like, "I don't have any decks." He's like, I have like 10 decks. Actually, just physical copies of these decks. I'm like, "All right, I'll game."
Yep.
He's like, "What deck do you want?" I'm like, "Mono red." And he's just like, "I'm playing mono red. So pick something else," right? So, fast forward to the end. I played the mono white monument deck. The one. It's got the 1/1 token creatures and Spell Queller and Cloud Blazer. So I actually won the F&M. But the thing that was funny is in the last round I was playing against a black-green guy, and he sided in Mountain to abrade me. He abraded my first 3 monuments, but I drew 4. It was funny. It just abrade in black-green. Mountain in.
What about Unlicensed Disintegration, man? Is he not already playing it? He's got 4 Attune with Ether or Traverse, depending which way he goes.
Yeah, I mean, he had...
I would play 4 Braids if I was playing Black Green, because I wouldn't play Black Green. I would play Jund.
I can't imagine he didn't have, unless the games that I think he crushed me game 1. He just played a second turn Heart of Kirin, right? So that's exactly the build that you want the Unlicensed Disintegration in, right? But anyway, I'm just saying, I think, like, you're right. Like, lots of decks can just play Abrade, whether or not they would traditionally be in those colors.
Yeah, I'm very sympathetic to the arguments of, like, for instance, Sam Black's deck. I love that Sam Black he doesn't put the Abrades in the main deck because he's so all in on this Incendiary Flow, Cartouche's Zeal, be as fast as possible, low land count. That's fine. I can respect that. But when he sideboards in Sunscorched Desert number 4 and that Handwear Battlements that I know makes you swoon, when he sideboards in lands 22 and 23, and then it has all this Glorybringer, Handwear Garrison, Chandra, Torch of Defiance business, he's got 4 Abrades. Like, he's got some sense. Like, it's fine if you want to have him in the sideboard. That's cool. That's cool with me. I'm just saying that, like, I wouldn't shave shading Abrade here is like shaving, I don't know, it's like shaving Vindicate. Just can't quite fit the 4th Vindicate.
I can't even imagine comparing them. Like, people shave Vindicate for curve, right? Like, their deck is mostly 2 or 1. They're like, so, oh man, 3s are real clunky in, whatever format you're playing Vindicate. Abrade is a 2 casting costs instant, right? We can't. It's just... I
meant in Standard when Vindicate was like a mana better than any other cards.
Yeah, it's a good card.
Yeah, it's like Abrade. It's like, would the card be good at 3? Yeah.
Sam Black is the 1%. You're right. He's got 2 copies of Handwear Garrison, and he's got that 1% chance of comboing. But I think that it might be difficult for him to actually fulfill the conditions, given how few lands he's got. I can't. First of all, love Sam. Super happy for him landing this top 8. But I can't co-sign this version personally. Land count seems real low to me. Desert count seems real low to me. That's the problem I see about this deck. Like, even if you get in with Messengers and Bowmat Couriers or whatever, I think people can brick wall your 1/1s, and then the whole point of this strategy is to just get them low enough that the Ramunap Ruins finishes them off. But if you can't have enough lands to activate it and you don't have enough deserts to fuel it, that strategy breaks down quite a bit. Like, I think that a fair number of the games that you're just finishing with Ramunap Ruins, you're pouring, like, I don't know, 12 mana over the course of a couple of turns to do so. It's not a small feat, right? You're like, I'm going to get there from 6 or even 8, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I mean, just knowing what we know now, right? That's what I'm saying, right? Like, if you're going into the Pro Tour, God knows what the incentives are. You don't know how popular something's going to be, and getting in low might be an incentive for you. But this is I'm just saying I wouldn't go with this build if we were moving forward.
So what do you think about Felix's Harsh Mentors? I almost wonder if you could Harsh Mentor in the main deck. I mean, Harsh Mentor, first of all, obviously competition for 2-drops, not fierce. You know, and it's not clear that 7 is the right number of 2-drops. You might want more than 7 2-drops. I don't know. But like the reason I think Harsh Mentor is interesting, which is 1 in a red, 2/2. Whenever an opponent activates the ability of an artifact, creature, or land on the battlefield, if it's not a mana ability, Harsh Mentor deals 2 damage to that player. The reason is because of its strength against Hazaret the Fervent and Ramunap Ruins.
Yeah. So basically, you're putting the opponent in a position where, they've got their end game, but you just preempt their end game. So you're like, I'm going to deal 2 to you, and you're like, wait, I'm going to deal 2 to you first. You're 2 on the stack, bang bang. So I like it. I like it a lot. I think that it's maybe not just strategy synergistic enough for main deck, though. If you look at the 2-drops in most of the red decks, you'll see, either you'll see like, Tom Ross played the splashed the Scroungers, but which was not popular at the Pro Tour top 8. But that's one thing you could do. But I think like the haste from the Khenra and haste and unblockability from the Khenra is like really in the center of where these red decks want to be attacking. And then Karizev's Skyship Raider is just a baller card, and I'm so happy it found a home. And I think that those guys are just very, very tight with what the deck wants to do. And I think versus Harsh Mentor just being kind of a proactive answer to things that other people might want to do to you, that's that's why I think it's like maybe a great sideboard card, but I don't know that I would play it in the main deck.
What would you think of Avacyn's Judgment these days?
I hadn't thought about it. I don't know. I mean, it offers a very different dimension to what these decks are doing right now.
Like being able to do 1 over here, 1 over there, that has a little bit, like that has something, right? And then depending on how far you go with it, if you had a few discard outlets, the ability to actually like let it just 1 on the badness is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
You think it's too fancy?
I think that if I were going to iterate on the red decks, I think I'd probably go to another color. That's actually kind of what I was thinking about coming off of the Pro Tour. You mentioned it already. Is there a big reason why we wouldn't explore in the direction of unlicensed disintegration, right? Like, let's say that you have the fail state version half the time or worse, right? Like, so you're only getting the 3 in, I don't know, like 40% of the time. You've still got a card that's basically on the order of other cards that these decks are playing. Like, that card is not so much weaker than Collective Defiance, for example. Like, it's not, it doesn't have the same level of maximum oomph, but it only costs 3 ever. It's always an instant, and it can take out a big creature, which are some things that the red deck doesn't currently have. But then when it hits, it really hits, right? You could play Bomat Courier, and you could find some other artifacts, I think. Like, you could play the Scrounger. You go Scrounger, Bomat Courier. I think that there's, like, a lot of incentive there. And
it's interesting.
If the question is, how do I eke more power into my red deck, because these decks are really powerful, but also respect the speed compression of these red mirror matches, I think there's a lot to be said. Like, you're like, second turn, Scrounger, you just, like, take out their on-crop crasher or whatever. They take 3 instead of you taking 3, and then you're just in for 6 the next turn. I think, like, that's pretty good. As long as you can make the mana work, and I don't think that's going to be too daunting. Just a thought. But I think, we could maybe iterate from Tom Ross's mana base, right? He already established a black-red mana base, and maybe there's something there.
Well, no, I mean, if you're going to look at black-red mana bases, I would just go to Shintaro's black-red. He played the Ramunap Red, but splashed black for Amit Eternal, a card I know very near and dear to your heart.
It is near and dear to my heart. At least we were discussing to begin with. But if I were going to splash black into the red deck, that's actually not the card I would go to. But Cut to Ribbons, man, I can co-sign that one. That's pretty exciting, isn't it?
Cut to Ribbons seems amazing to me.
Wow.
I love Cut to Ribbons in these decks.
Because how good is just Cut?
It's great.
It's fantastic. And then you're like, oh, by the way, if the game gets anywhere near close, I'm braining you for 100. And it's like, wow. That's just really a great reason to go black-red, I think.
Cut to Ribbons helps make Soulscar Mage a little bit more appealing, too.
Oh, yeah, certainly, right? It can help you drop a god, right? Let's talk about that god. Do you think that in the coverage they overblew how draw-dependent the Hazarets are? Like I know it's like... is it more draw-dependent, more asymmetrical than, like, Heart of Kiran and Mardu? Like, I think, like, Heart of Kiran is so asymmetrical.
No, the thing is... It takes a mix. It takes a mix of factors to make the Hazaret all come together in the most devastating time frame. Heart of Kiran, at the end of the day, you've got like a dozen cards that trade with it, right? But like Hazaret has a super low floor and the best ceiling.
Yeah.
So it has just such a huge range depending on the mix of your draw. So I don't know. I think it's pretty draw dependent.
I can't really co-sign this build. It's got only 3 abrades, like you said. Can't co-sign that.
Blazing Volley is interesting. Do you think Blazing Volley is the best way to do that kind of effect?
I think Blazing Volley is... I think that when Blazing Volley hits the way you want it to hit, it's like nothing else. It's like the opponent that could be just so full of 1 toughness creatures and you just murder him. But I think it's pretty like high variance. It's not an instant.
I'm into it. I wonder, like, for instance, is there any chance that once you've got Soulscar Mage to me, and this is only part of the equation, but like it does add a little extra appeal to Dual Shot being an instant. And when is Blazing Volley better than Dual Shot? When you're killing 3 things? Is that the spot where you need the help?
Yeah, I think that this card is like you choose it because it's. Here's the thing: it's like its bad version is always pretty good, right? If your opponent just like plays a 1/1 on turn 1, right, and then you're just like you don't have a better play, and you're just like, use my mana and kill your 1/1. That's pretty good, right?
Yeah, but Dual Shot's that too. I'm just comparing Dual Shot and Blazing Volley because like. When the main place where you want it is a deck that has 4 Bomat Couriers, 4 Village Elders very frequently, 4 Earthshaker Khenras, that's so many 1 toughness haste creatures. And here we see Kentaro with Eldrazi Obligator. That's so many 1 toughness haste creatures. I would love to have Dual Shot instead of Blazing Volley in such a circumstance.
Yeah, just to counter the haste, right?
Yeah, and like plus it's an instant. Soulscar Mage, blow it out. Like
all right, so let's talk about Eldrazi Obligator for a second.
Sure.
I think that might be, if you're going to stay in the confines of the red strategy, I think that might be the next level because it's just another haste creature you can play, that just adds to the, this gigantic like snowball coming down the mountain, right? Avalanche of haste creatures. But this haste creature on 5 can take their god, right? And
if your hand is low.
Fair enough. But, it can take their god, it can take their Glorybringer, it can take, like, something big and just really just turn this race around. Besides which, if you're playing against non-red matchups, like, you can take somebody's gigantic Gearhulk, for example, and just really get in on them. I don't know. I think that's the kind of card where I really like the high end of the variance that it establishes, and its bad version is still perfectly fine. Its bad version is very much on the order of other cards you'd be willing to play, like Untapped Crasher.
So, I mean, do you like it better than the Kari Zev's expertises? That so Wing Chun Yam, Wing Chun Yam had one Kari Zev's expertise, but I thought one of the other builds had a couple.
I thought the Kari Zev's expertise, it looked pretty.
Oh yeah,
pretty
4. Felix has 4.
I like it. In fact, I actually like it a lot because it helps you drop cards to set up your god.
That's cool.
Yeah, just getting cards out of your hand, sweet, you know.
Yep.
Bomat Curry was just in the. It's been awesome. It's so impressive.
It's had a great run.
Like, it's crazy. Like, it even does stuff like it stops triggers in combat that you might want to deal with, like lifelink. Like, it's like which is not intuitive, right? You're like, oh, I'm actually gonna block with my Bomat Courier and sacrifice it before damage.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like it was really impressive in all the stuff. I was like, oh, look.
So, well, there were 6 Ramunap Ruin decks in the top 8. And Ramunap Ruins Red was by far the most popular deck, and it was very successful. There were some other strategies that did pretty well, and we see a couple of them in the top 8 here. Sam Pardee, with his second top 8 in the past year. Black-green Constrictor this time, and notably, Sam. I missed 2 Pro Tours. He top 8'd them both. I don't know. It's like a reverse Flores thing, like the way how every time you would show up to a Pro Tour back in the day.
Yeah, you would make top 8. I remember that when in LA that one year, you snuck into day 2, right? I just remember I'm playing for top 8 of the PTQ, right? And you just tackled me from behind, and you're just like, just show up to every tournament. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're like, I went 6-0. That was your top 8 deck was awesome, right? Was that like
wait, in LA?
In LA, it was like Gaia's
no.
Phyrexian Processor.
Yeah, no. It was a bad deck, though. It was there. I had some good opens, but the deck was poorly put together for how the format was.
I think that you had a bad matchup, right? Like Processor.
No, it doesn't matter. It's not. Let's put it this way.
Focus on this.
It's a sweet tournament. Saga was awesome.
I love that limited format. All right, let's talk about Sam Pardee's black-green deck instead of your black-green deck from the boat in 1999. So, Sam just loves Grim Flare. And this is a great Grim Flare setup, I think, right? He's got Evolving Wilds, Traverse the Ulvenwald, Dissenter's Deliverance, all these cards to get very, very cheaply get different types into the graveyard. And, he's got the superpower of playing 5 Planeswalkers, right? So that's just another different card type that he can quickly help hit Grim Flare and Traverse the Ulvenwald, etc. to make his deck go.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, there's basically 2 kind of meaningful evolutions here, and there's a few tweaks. But the biggest, to me, the loudest thing, and this is something we saw out of both Sam and Yusuke Sasabi, is the use of Kalidas, Trader of Get main deck. Sam's got 2 copies, and obviously those 4 traverses can go look for them. And then Yusuke's got 3 Kalidas in his zombie deck, which we don't see too much of. But I love Kalidas right now in the format.
Oh, agreed. It's like probably the 4-5 sequence in Sam's deck for Kalidas into Verdurous Gearhulk has got to be one of the most devastating possible sequence combinations that you can do in Standard, given the prevalence of mono red. First of all, Kalidas is great against Embalm and that kind of stuff, right? Just to begin with. And then, secondly, Lifelink is great against red.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not just the Embalm cards specifically, or Eternalize cards even. It's the fact that the God Pharaoh's Gift deck, it really wants its creatures to get into the graveyard.
I hadn't even thought about that. You're right.
Yeah, no, it's devastating against them, and it's not trivial for them to get Kalitas off the table. And then against these red decks, oh my god! And just throughout the format, the fact that a Braid is so unbelievable. Well, let's look at how did people get Abrades in their deck? To start with, they cut Harness Lightning, and if they don't have the Harness Lightning and they have a Braid instead, Kalitas is a happy man. And then what about the people who are playing a Braid instead of Harness? It doesn't matter if it's a Braid and Harness Lightning and Energy or Blue-Red Control or Red or whatever. But then what about the number of Grasp of Darknesses? There are less Grasp of Darknesses now because of the sheer volume of people who are like, I don't need Grasp of Darkness to kill Heart of Kiran. My Braid will do that for me. And as a result, with less Grasps, less Harness Lightnings, and so on, that's actually a big part of the reason why we see so many Collective Defiances now. That's part of the equation, is the Collective Defiance can kill Kalitas. If Kalitas comes down and is just allowed to live, it will annihilate these red decks. So I want to play Kalitas in Grixis, and I want to play Kalitas in black-red mid-range, which is basically kind of like Grixis, acknowledging that counterspells kind of suck right now. But, like, I think you could just play black-red with 4 Collective Brutalities and 4 Doomfalls. I know that might sound like overkill, but I don't think it is. I think that they're so flexible of cards, and the ability to just bridge or clear the way, see how much trouble there is if you need to, but also Collective Brutality and Doomfall is a 1-2 punch that can go after. Like, both of them are good against everybody. I think that's the future, man. And then, like, when you drop Kalitas on 4, if your turn 4 is Kalitas or Chandra, those are some fantastic 4th turns.
Yeah, so I think it's just one of those things, which is that you don't have to be the biggest guy in the tournament. Those plays are bigger than other people are making, right? Like, that's enough.
Right, and then against the people who are going even bigger, if you've got 4 Collective Brutality and 4 Doomfall, and then you also just, in addition to your Kalitas and Chandra, have Goblin Dark Dwellers and maybe Glorybringer, I don't know, that's some stuff.
I agree. I think there's like a really crazy swerve that's going to come out of Standard soon. I have a very strong prediction, actually, which is okay, go ahead. I mean, I don't know. We can talk about it later. We just talk about some other decks from the actual tournament. But I think, like, the signals are clear. I think it is time for I think Horse Tribal is going to do something in the near term, because Authority of the Councils is like the most perfectly positioned. It's never been more perfectly positioned. It counters haste, which is the red decks are just full of haste. It's super cheap. And it triggers Horse Tribal on the opponent's turn. Like, those are a lot of things that are really, really substantial all at once. And on the subject of, like, not having to be the biggest, like, there's nothing bigger than Crested Sunmare legitimately right now that people will play, because Blue-Red is getting spooked by Ramunap Ruins. Like, you can't play a strategy where if you go to 10, they automatically kill you with their land, right? Like, that's not a thing.
Torrential Gearhulk is also taking a beating from a Braid. Yeah, but how about this? I'm with you. I'm with you on Authority. That's a good card. I just don't know for sure that you have to go to Horse Tribal with it. Maybe, but like, dude.
What's the Grixis land? The one that a land comes into play and you gain a life?
Yeah, the Crypt Eternals.
I think, like, you just play that card in your mono white deck just so you can just trigger Horse Tribal really quick. Or also, I think Lone Rider. Like, some of these cards that no one has touched, I think it could be their time. You put them all together in a deck, and you just have amazing critical mass.
Okay, let's hit these other decks from the tournament and then do the brewing real fast, because now you're whetting my appetite. Dude, so Sam's deck has the Kalitas, which I love so much. And then it's the main thing is that he's just a little lower to the ground, and he's gotten away from all the Rishkar Pima Renegades. You notice that? Just one Rishkar Pima Renegade.
Yeah. So he loses some explosiveness, right?
Right.
I don't know. I love Tireless Tracker, but I'm not sure. I'm sure that he has a really, really solid thought process on this.
Dude, I still love Tireless Tracker. I think Tireless Tracker is excellent when everybody's trading 1 and 2 cost cards that are like super efficient, and you're just trying to like bounce. You're just trying to 1-for-1, 1-for-1. Like, I think Tireless Tracker is the sickest 4-drop.
I love Tireless Tracker, and I super love Tireless Tracker in a deck with Evolving Wilds. Right? I'm just saying, I have been on the wrong side of Whiny Constrictor, Rishkar, Verdrisk, Gear Hulk enough to know that that's some stuff.
That's just not what's going on against the red decks, man.
This deck's great against the red decks, as far as I can tell.
Partly because you don't have all of that. Instead, you're just playing the cards that he's playing, like Grimflayer and Walking Ballista and Winding Constrictor as just part of us. Just try to play cheap cards that have the ability to get really big and explosive. Don't be all in on the explosiveness.
I guess part of it is like if he just trades with you 1-for-1, he's got a bigger thing than you can deal with at some point, right? Or he has just a Kalidas or a Tireless Tracker or a Verdrisk Gearhulk that just has more value than whatever your remainder is.
Yeah, particularly when he sideboards in the one Ishkana.
Oof. I kind of wish there were more Ishkanas.
I know.
Ishkana's
I don't know about
devastating.
more. I just meant the one main. I don't know.
I think that don't you want to think about having more than one copy? It's really hard to beat. I think
it's really hard to beat. So I guess just the one, because it's really hard to beat it.
But I mean,
if you play a second one, it's overkill.
All right, I don't know. Like I think a lot of the time,
the thing is, I don't know. I just think that when you have all these demonic tutors.
Yeah, but like, isn't there the play pattern where like you get one, they throw 2 or 3 cards at it, and then you just traverse and play a second one when you still have spiders in play, and then they fold, right? Like. Because they used a whole bunch of resources to probably not win, and then you just finish it.
I don't mind 1+1. I don't mind 1+1. But I don't know. I do think it's kind of interesting, though, the use of Hashep Oasis, though. The Hashep Oasis, all 8 decks in the top 8 desert decks. This one, the lightest of the desert decks.
So, talk to me about this Oasis. What does it even do in this deck?
Well, to begin with, it's like a forest in almost every way.
Yep.
And you really don't need as much green manas in here. It's just that you really want to make sure you have it to traverse. So if you play with if you draw a Hashep Oasis, you're probably not going to take very much damage from it, even under the worst of circumstances. You're going to frequently take none. Because, like, past turn 3, you're just not in a position of needing to tap the Hashep Oasis for green. Once you have your traverse to set things up, it's really just make sure you can traverse early and you can play Nissa on 3 if you need to. And then when the game drags out, it just gives you another option. It's not the greatest, it's not the most dominating presence on the table, but it's got a few things it does outside of just. Obviously, it always does something. You can just hit for 3 extra damage, right? But like you can target your Kalidas and get a nice little multiplier that way, right? Like that's something.
I'm in.
And then the part that's really sweet is Grim Flare. If you ever just buff Grim Flare with Hashep Oasis, it is kind of nice. Obviously you have to sack the Oasis, so you never get more than one bump, but it's just a very low opportunity cost, and I think the only reason he didn't play more was because of his correct read on the metagame that there were going to be so many mono red decks.
Oh yeah, if you play too many, then it actually does start becoming life point prohibitive in a format where people are hasting you on turns 1, 2, 3, and 5.
I think it's important to really give enough weight to why it's Hashep Oasis instead of the Ifnir Deadlands. Even if Ifnir Deadlands is a better card, when you're playing a deck like this, you're going to have to keep tapping your black more and more, like later as the game goes on. It's not just the double black cards like Grasp of Darkness, although that is a big part of it. You're traversing for black, and that's already factored in, So I just think that it will surprise you just how much pain you'll take if you try to do it the other way. So I think I'm a big fan of that build. But actually, If Near Deadlands did make a pretty nice appearance, in addition to the black-red deck we saw earlier from Shintaro, which, by the way, you never mentioned, I guess, never shared your thoughts on the use of Amet Eternal in these mono-red decks.
I was saying, it's not the direction I would have gone intuitively. It's a...
You don't like the Negator?
I mean, I don't know. I like it. It's just not... that's not where my head would have gone. I don't know that card is... So, obviously, it's powerful, right? There's no question about that. Especially if you can clear the way, right? And it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of card. There's a lot of good things about it. But if you're going to compromise on your mana... I don't know if that's the one you're going to compromise for. But I guess I'd be happy to do it just because Cut to Ribbons is so insane, and the Ribbons is much more color prohibitive than this.
But speaking of other zombies besides Amet Eternal and If Near Deadlands, mono black zombies from Yusuke Sasabi in his mono black zombies. If Near Deadlands, the only card from. If Near Deadlands being the only card from Hour of Devastation in the entire 75. It's not like Sam had a lot. Sam Pardis' list, he just had that one Hashep Oasis in his main deck, and then a single Doomfall in his sideboard, and his other 73 were existing. And here we see him on a black deck with just 3 If Near Deadlands as the only new cards in the main, and then... nothing in the board.
Well, the Kalidas is kind of like the new old card, right? That's his kind of bend in, where in previous incarnations we might have seen, 3 or 4 copies of Liliana's Mastery or something. He doesn't get so many new tools, but he's tuning against the tools that other folks have. This deck is very aware of mono red, right? I don't think that he picked it in the when Jerry won the Pro Tour 1 Pro Tour ago, he picked mono black on its baseline value, right? I think that Sasabe picked this based on its context in the metagame, even though the deck's quite similar.
Sure. Yeah, the Kalidas thing is just such a big ad. It is such a big ad. You know what though? I honestly would not hate Scavenger Grounds in this deck. I really liked Christian Calcano's use of Scavenger Grounds instead of Westvale Abbey. I like Scavenger Ground a lot, man. I don't know.
It's just, who you're aiming for. I like Westvale Abbey a lot. I think Westvale Abbey does some stuff for you.
Okay. What other... were there any other decks that really caught your eye? Obviously, there was, a whole lot of the Ramunap Red with, some zombies and black-green. Those were like the 3 most popular decks. But
there's a ton of decks I think that are worth talking about. Unfortunately, I think the top end of this Pro Tour was just so focused on a small number of archetypes. Maybe like just 3 archetypes. But I think there's
can I point out a couple that really I thought were just kind of worth taking an extra look at?
Of course.
Joe Lamb's Teamer Energy deck, which I believe he went 8-2 in the standard portion, only held back by draft, but went 8-2 in the standard portion. Joe Lamb's Teamer Energy deck had several twists we don't usually see, and this is a Teamer Energy deck that, so it's got the whole Whirler Virtuoso, Rogue Refiner, Glorybringer, Tune with Aether, Harness Lightning, Chandra, Torch of Defiance, all that stuff, right? But then he's got this vehicle theme with 4 Heartikirans and 2 Aether Sphere Harvesters. And then he's got 4 Greenbelt Rampagers, including the Mondo combo of Greenbelt Rampager with Heartikiran, where even if you can't pay, you can crew your Heartikiran in response, which is cool. And then Aether Chaser is a little bit different, right? Like, that's something we haven't really seen. At least not in a Teamer Energy deck, right?
Oh, I don't think I've seen this card anywhere, right? But
I mean, it was like a fringe mono red card for like a while back, but that was like not even like mainstream at all.
I mean, this card is just like a kind of an offensive respect the curve card here, right? It's weird to me, though, that this deck is green and it chooses to play this card instead of the Cub, right? Would that be your reading also?
It's surprising, but I think it's because of the use of Abrade and Harness Lightning. Because First Strike is getting extra mileage out of this deck.
I thought you were intimating that its frequency of hitting red on the second turn was high enough that it would want a red 2-drop rather than a green 2-drop.
No, I just meant in terms of being able to get in there, rumble, and then outclass the potential blockers. And then this is a Samet the Tested. This is not 5-drop Samet. This is Planeswalker Samet. That's surprising to me. And I mean, Arc Lightning is pretty sweet in the format, actually. Being able to do 1-1 and still have a Planeswalker, that's kind of cool. It's kind of fragile, though. But Double Strike is kind of sweet, too. I don't know. This card seems like worse than Chandra to me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's kind of weird, though, because this deck only has 18 creatures. That's the thing. So, like, Samet becomes, like, very, very high variance, I think. Right? Like...
Well, I mean, you also have these vehicles, too.
Well, you need creatures to crew the vehicles. I mean, I guess...
No, you don't. No, Samet crews.
Samet can crew Heart of Kiran.
Or an Aether Sphere Harvester, all you need is energy. Oh, no, you don't. That's to get the lifelink. But, yeah, Samet can crew the 4 Heart of Kiran, so it's like there's 22.
I can get behind that. Samet crewing the Heart of Kiran.
Dude, even a Wandering Firmorall, call it 23.
Boom, boom.
So I thought that was, definitely kind of an unusual deck. Raph Levy, also 8-2, with an exotic take of 4-color vehicles. And, Raph, Hall of Famer, has played the most Pro Tours, and my gosh, he has played a lot in a row.
And team top level's own Raphael.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then, so his 4-color vehicle deck, first of all, he played a 3rd Aether Sphere Harvester instead of the 4th Heart of Kiran. Little different. And then instead of the 4th Scrap Heap Scrounger, he played 1 Filigree Familiar. That's wild.
And Glintnest Crane?
And then he has 3 Glintnest Cranes powered by, so there's 6 vehicles, 3 Scroungers is 9, 4 Ballistas is 13, and a Filigree Familiar is 14. So he's got 14 hits. I just think it's amazing that you could put 14 hits in your deck and still only have 3 Scrap Heap Scroungers.
What do you think about the 3 unlicensed disintegrations? But for a braids!
Well, that's the right split if you're going to split. He does have 1 Fatal Push, though. But Fatal Push costing 1 is kind of nice. I don't hate 3 unlicensed disintegrations. I think unlicensed disintegration has gotten a lot worse. Not being able to kill Hazaret, the fact that so many people have no creatures that are like worth unlicensed disintegrating. I don't know, man. I don't hate trimming on the unlicensed disintegration. And he still has cut to ribbons in the sideboard, but he's got your Authority of the Consuls. That's pretty sweet, right?
I mean, I would go all out on Authority of the Councils if I were going to play it. I'd play like 2 copies main deck and go up to 4. It seems like so busted if you actually draw it. Like it just like you just undo like the core incentives to their strategy for 1 mana.
Part of the reason I like Raph's deck so much is the use of Glintnest Crane is actually brilliant in this mono red field. Think about how sick Glintnest Crane is against these red decks.
Oh yeah, because they've got a 2/1.
It's or 1/1s. It's just phenomenal, right? It's just so good. And then that's part of the reason why there's this 3rd Aether Sphere Harvester. And obviously, Aether Sphere Harvester, even though it can get abraded, so can Heart of Kiran. Aether Sphere Harvester is fantastic against these red decks. And then the Glintnest Crane being able to crew the Harvester, that's important. I mean, if you look at Raph's list, he's a little slim on ways to crew his Heart of Kirin.
I mean, yeah, he's got like Scryheap Scrounger, Toolcraft Exemplar, and Gideon, right? That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a team effort.
That's
because you can like. Oh no, it happens a fair bit. You can have the if the Crane crews the Harvester that you just played this turn, the Harvester can then crew the Heart of Kirin.
Yep.
Work your way up. And then the other thing I like about only 3 Scryheap Scroungers though is that it's so devastating if you ever draw 2 against a red deck. Whereas if you were to draw a Scryheap Scrounger and a Filigree Familiar, that'll play. I think this is okay. Obviously, Raph is an amazing player. I think he's even though he's like obviously on the short list for deck builders, I still think he's underrated as a deck builder because I don't think people always realize when is this just Raph being Raph, madness, whatever, versus when is this some brilliant move? And I think that this is a very well-tuned. I haven't played with these, but I see what he's doing here, and I think that it looks real smart for the such a red heavy format.
Yeah, Glint Crane, per your statement, just seems just phenomenal against a bunch of 1 toughness creatures, and it's advancing his own just core strategy at the same time. Yeah,
so big fan there. I still wouldn't want to play Mardu or Vehicles or whatever right now. I just think that a lot of the stuff people are going to do to hate on red is going to let them also do well against Mardu. So I don't know, but dude, I don't think this format is laid out the way. I don't think this format is. It's going to get more aggressive. Let's put it that way. I know you're talking about like it getting all horse tribal.
I am talking about that.
But like, I don't know. That just maybe I'd love to see it. I would love to see it. What else are you like? First of all, why? Is it just because it's a powerful card and you want to be gaining life anyway because you're like, it's a red format, so it's great to gain life?
Well, first of all, if you have the card online, it's a great card, right? It's like on the order of Broodmate Dragon. It's not like a joke. Like
it's better than Broodmate Dragon if you get it online.
Yeah, it's great. And then it's also great against things that aren't red, at least potentially, right? Like if people are playing Crush of Tentacles, for example, it's not very good. But it potentially is really good against other kinds of interaction, removal, and even sweepers. Because even if you lose the Crescent Sunmare, a lot of his buddies are going to stick around because of the or like be hard to kill at least because of the indestructible portion. But like, there's just so many ways to compact value into a deck list that nobody's exploring these avenues. Like, I guess Raph's got 2 copies of Flurry of the Councils in his sideboard here, right? That card is really strong. It's really strong against red because they have so many haste creatures, but it's like pretty good against other decks. Like just gaining life every time somebody plays a Scryheap Scrounger or a Filigree Familiar or a Walking Ballista, whatever you're playing, like that helps you in racing. And then especially if you have some offense that you can pour at them, their blocking gets worse. You're just randomly gaining life, and then if you've got the Sunmare in play, like all the better.
All right. Well, I'll take the meeting. I'll see what the horse has to say.
All right.
But what about Saito playing blue-red control? Blue-red control. He was the highest finishing control player by record anyway for standard portion, going 7-1 and 7-1-2 with a couple new twists. So to begin with, his a lot more sweepers. And then obviously, preparing for the as red heavy of a format. He's got 2 Sweltering Suns, 2 Hour of Devastations, and all of this is on top of 11 cheap spot removal, 4 Magma Spray, 4 Harness Lightning, 3 Abrade. That's so much cheap removal.
Yeah, I don't. I love this strategy before the Pro Tour, but I can't wrap my head around it right now. Like you said, Torrential Gearhulk, which is the main way that you win with this deck. Like, when are you going to cast it? Like, a lot of the time you cast it on turn 6 because you want to just either flash back a draw 2 or get your stuff in line to defend yourself or get a removal off. But if you're tapping out, it's just going to get abraded large percentage of the time. And the major problem here is its only solution to Ramunap Ruins is racing, right? There's nothing else you can do. So you're put in a situation where like you have to be dealing, 8 to 10 or something. You're just not gonna do it fast enough.
I mean, if you look at his sideboard, he's actually going to be boarding in 10 cards for the red matchup. 2 Chandra's Defeat, 3 Pia Noir, 3 Thing in the Ice, 2 Glorybringer. Like, he's and I don't know for sure that you want the Glorybringer, but I assume you do, because you've got to win fast. And I at least like that. I at least like that switching gear, But I don't know that I'd want to start with the blue-red. Like, I kind of just want to start already sideboarded into a black-red deck.
Patrick, it sounds to me you just don't want to be a blue-red deck.
Dude, who do you want the counterspells against? What spells are you going to counter?
I don't know. I think,
I would counter Hazoret.
Yeah, I would counter Hazoret, too. Unfortunately, Supreme Will is probably not going to be facing up against Hazoret as often as you'd like. Instead, it's going to be like, I guess.
Dude, Hour of Devastation against Hazoret, though. Messenger. I love Hour of Devastation.
I agree.
What do you think of Jean-Francois Ben 2 Lathnu Hellions in his Ramunap Red deck?
I think that it just thematically fits the strategy of the deck.
It's got 2 more on the board, too.
Yeah, it's got haste. And the thing is, it's also, pretty busty card. It's difficult to remove relative to some of the other mono-red threats. And just on turn 3, depending on what the opponent's blocker situation is, it's pretty just perceived as an upgrade to On-Crop Crasher, right? Like, it's a little bit bigger. I don't know. In my experience, the energy never ends up being as big of a deal as it seems initially. People can pay, and then you end up killing it or something.
The other cool thing is his use of Sunset Pyramid in the sideboard. And this is a very low to the ground red deck, but when he's transforming, one of the things he's getting is Sunset Pyramid as both a source of card advantage and so it's a source of card advantage and just card flow in general as the game progresses, but it's also helps keep his curve a little lower. Being able to not have as many 4s and 5s as some of the other decks in their sideboard, while still having some real power.
Yeah, retaining the power, sure.
Right. I just thought that was interesting, it's a little slow, but if the format gets 1-for-1 trading enough.
Yep.
Dude, Grasp of Darkness seems like it could be really well, poised to make a comeback. Being able to grasp people's Kalidas or grasp their Hazoret.
Yeah, I think that's just going to be one of the corks that you can pop into the bottle of this format, because Hazoret is really only hella unstoppable if you're just in the mono red mirror, right? when other colors get involved, they can actually cast it out, grasp it, etc.
So Shintaro Ishimura playing play red green ramp for so a total of 6 of the Pain Deserts, 4 Hashep Oasis and 2 Ramunap Ruins, and then he kept it going with the 1 Scavenger Grounds, which you can obviously go get, but he actually has 4 Gift of Paradise and 3 Weirding Wood. Weirding Wood instead of that cycling one from Hour. I like Weirding Wood, man. And then Gift of Paradise to get that extra life to help you bridge. That's smart. You smart, Shintaro.
So what do you like about Weirding Wood? This is a card that I tested a little bit in Bant, but it became Spring to Mind. So you get this 3 casting cost enchantment. When it comes into play, you investigate, which is cool, but then it really upgrades your mana, right?
Yeah, the fact that you can put Weirding Wood on one of your pain lands to not have to take damage and to get 2 of whatever color you need, which is, invaluable for the Chandra Torch of Defiance, being able to do it on the splash or whatever, because, obviously didn't end up playing Oath of Nissa. But part of it is just, it's like you get to cycle it even though you cast it.
Yep. It's just kind of a time delay, right?
Right. The big cost, as much as there is one, the big cost here is that it doesn't count as a land. Like if you are trying to get enough land in play to activate Sanctum of Ugin, for instance. Not Sanctum of Ugin, sorry, Shrine of the Forsaken Gods. If you're trying to get enough land in play to activate Shrine of the Forsaken Gods, neither Gift of Paradise nor Weirding Wood support that plan. Not directly,
What do you think about the threat count of only 2 copies of Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunter, despite having the Traverse the Uvenwald / Hour of Promise / Shrine of the Forsaken Gods engine built into the deck, but running 3 World Breakers in the main deck? That seems like a little
That's surprising.
Like I think that if I were going to play a deck like this, I would just want to be able to get as lucky as possible with my most explosive draws. 4 of each of those things, 4 Ulamogs and 4 Shrines.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's not the first way I would have thought to do it, but so Sun Gwen Ji had a very exotic take with 4 Ulamogs and 3 World Breakers, plus 4 Sheffet Monitors to go along with his 4 Hour of Promise. And then he actually had 4 Beneath the Sands, like we were just talking about. But what do you make of this build? This is this is pretty wild, right? Like 4 Sheffet Monitors?
I love Sheffet Monitor. I've played a lot of it in testing, but I'm a little apprehensive about it in a mono red field. So maybe I love it less than my initial statement. For example, I think it's really good against a bunch of decks that don't do well right now. So, like, it's kind of like your equivalent to an Inspiration or whatnot against blue red, but you can't really take a turn off to cycle Sheffet Monitor against zombies or mono red. You're probably gonna just lose your shirt.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Like, but it's great if you're not playing against mono offense.
It's not the best time for that, though.
Unfortunately.
What do you think of Scott Lipp's mono white Eldrazi white aggro? This is like in some ways, it looks a lot like the sort of white blue flash spell queller decks, right? Except instead of spell queller, instead of doing the whole spell queller and like a few counterspells thing, Thought Knot Seer and Eldrazi Displacer.
I love Eldrazi Displacer in
Matter Reshaper too. At that,
in this deck, it's actually one of the things I was thinking of in my Crescent Sunmare deck, for a couple of reasons. One of them is just, let's say the opponent's playing God Pharaoh's Gift. It's great defense there, right?
Sure.
And then it's pretty good defense against Earthshaker Khenra's Flashback, big creatures in general. I like it. I like that aspect of the deck quite a bit. I'm not 100% sure about how the Eldrazi are going to play out. Seems like they'd be pretty good, but
Matter Reshaper seems pretty good.
I'm just never gonna.
I like the use of no Reality Smashers.
Yeah, I'm just never gonna bet against
Archangel instead.
Archangel Avacyn.
Yeah.
that woman will come down, flap her wings, and put an end to whoever was attacking you.
Dude, 4 scavenger grounds. 4.
I think, yes, they're kind of the reasons that you like that card, but I think also he just wanted to have enough.
He could have played Sunscorched Desert.
You're probably right. Sunscorched Desert is pretty awesome.
And then, in addition to the 3 spawning beds, he has the 2 Aether Hubs and, of course, the 4 Shephet Dunes. I like Shephet Dunes. I think Shephet Dunes is a very not trivial spell-like ability to be getting. You know? Like, it's not as, for sure, as Ramunap Ruins, but it has a higher ceiling.
That it does. What do you think about only 2+2 copies of Gideon Ally of Zendikar and the 1 copy of Sky Sovereign Council Flagship in the main deck?
Weird. A little surprising.
I'll play 2 copies of my best card.
No, it's not his best card. Gideon is a highly overrated phenomenon. But I don't know, man. It's a tough time for Sky Sovereign, given that I don't think it's playable to play Magic without 4 braids. But, yeah, I don't know. What do you think of the 3 Solemnities in the sideboard? That's interesting. Going after the energy people hard, apparently.
Yeah, I think if you're going to play a deck like this, right, one of the things you're making a bet on is that your deck is going to be durable against mono red, right? He's got cards like Matter Reshaper that trade perfectly against mono red, right? Thraben Inspector is a perfect card to play against mono red. It absorbs most of their 1-drops.
It's moat sometimes.
Yeah, like it stone beats some of their 1-drops and then trades with the other ones while generating card advantage. It's just like, all right, I'm going to go this direction. Maybe I'm not going all the way to Horse Tribal, but I've got the same kind of emotional, mono-white resonance that the Horse Tribal lunatics might want to play in a mono.
You'd never go full Horse Tribal.
Yeah, you can't go the full Horse Tribal maybe, but you're like, I can get behind Glory Bound Initiate, right? That has lifelink. So you're just in this spot, and then you're like, okay, I'm comfortable in my ability to beat mono red. What else is there in the world? And I think that's kind of where you land. You're like, well, then maybe there's energy. Solemnity. There you go.
Do you think it's possibly time for Arborback Stomper to make a comeback?
Who?
The Thragtusk.
Yeah, that's what I thought you meant. No, I don't.
Dude! So, for instance, if you look at the sideboard of... Who's one of the people with it? Okay, so Alessandro Portaro in his Teamer Energy deck, the Champion of Wits. It's not Teamer Emerge, the Elder Deep Fiend, Champion of Wits, that whole thing. But he's got a fair bit of energy. Dude, Arborback Stomper is kind of like stomp, 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 stomp.
Yeah, it's also kind of like 5 mana. And I don't know. I just don't feel it. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can imagine wanting a bunch of different cards that I'd rather have than that.
It's a lot of 5-drops in this deck too. I don't know that I'm not lined up to be like, oh my god, I need more 5-drops against mono red.
And the other thing is it doesn't even outclass their 4-drop, right? You gain 5, but it's such a temporary reprieve if their stuff is online.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I'm a believer in it. What do you think of Essence Extraction? Is that the right way?
What do I think my gut is no, it's not the right way. Mono Red won the Pro Tour. No. That's my gut. Can it find a context where it has other buddies and they're going to be able to put Mono Red in its place? Yes, of course. Do I think Mono Red is the be-all and end-all? Of course not. There's 6 different copies in the top 8, and all of them had distinct features. We don't even know what the preferred version of Mono Red in Standard is yet. The only thing that I'd be willing to stick my neck out a little bit on in predictions is I don't think it's going to be oppressive in the same way that some of the previous couple of Standards were, right? It doesn't feel that way to me. I think this deck is very fundamentally different, more fun, more kind of like flowy, and like that's not a real word, flowy. Like more.
It's a word.
Yeah,
you can do that.
It's like,
nothing is no. There's nothing that isn't a word now. You can just, if you make it a word, it's a word. That's how English works.
It's flexible. Now. It finds its shape. You know, it's not overly laden with prepackaged combinations that limit people's ability to choose cards, and it seems eminently hateable, right? Like the fact that we can even just have a discussion about Horse Tribal, or just look at Scott Lip's deck, right? This deck has got an advantage against mono red. It's got to, or Sam Pardee's deck. This deck is like a deck you might play, like black green, pretty decent power level deck you might play. Seems like it has an advantage against mono red, and still performs very consistently in all likelihood against basically everybody else. I think that the fact that that's the universe we're living in right now is a good thing, and who knows what the correct version of mono red is going to be anyway.
So Wafo's blue-red deck was a little bit of a twist.
He likes his finishers.
Yeah, so he is splashing. So it is the blue-red with splashing Nicol Bolas, God Pharaoh off of just 4 Aether Hubs. Which I like. I don't mind.
But you're
going
to get there, right? Like at the point that you're dropping your 7-drop, you've found a source of black, probably.
But then he's playing no Hour of Devastation's main. He's got them both in the sideboard, and no Sweltering Suns. Instead, he has just 3 Kozilek's returns to go along with his 3 Abrades, 3 Harness Lightnings, and notably 0 Magma Sprays.
Couple of things. I think that
2 in the sideboard, I guess, but
Kozilek's return is, I mean, it feels like it's giving up some defensive power level, but at the same time, the fact that it's an instant and the fact that so many of your opponents will be just slogging in with haste creatures that have 1 toughness in all likelihood, makes this card way, way more attractive than it might be in the dark.
Yeah, although if it were in the dark, it would be really weird because they had not yet printed any Eldrazi back in 1990.
Oh, got it.
94.
That's
94.
That is not worthy of you. That one was not worthy of you.
So, dude, I love Wafo Tapa, man. 4 Glimmer of Genius, 4 Hieroglyphic Illumination. Yeah. We
2 pull from tomorrow.
We probably have at least room for two pull from tomorrows.
Main deck along with Nicol Bolas, God Pharaoh.
Of course, and 4 Disallow, 4 Censor. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Yeah. All I had to do to fit all of these cards in the format of all rushing, hasty, fast, small drops is to not play Magma Spray.
And then in the sideboard, he's got that 4th Abrade, 4th Kozilek's Return, couple Magma Sprays to keep it honest, but then 1 to the Slaughter, and 1 the Locust God. What do you think of those 2?
I mean, to the Slaughter, I'm a little, it seems like kind of cute for this build, but the Locust God, I mean, it's just such a Wafo card. It's Wafo in every way, right? When I met the guy, he had Niv Mizzet in front of him, the first time. And this card is like so Niv Mizzet to me.
Yeah. It would have surprised me for Wafo to not be showing up with the Locust God.
It's like the most skillful top of creature there is.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. It's pretty high up there. I mean, yeah.
Actual Niv Mizzet, maybe, sure.
Niv Mizzet itself is also pretty high on the Wafo spectrum. But, I don't know. It should be interesting to see. Me? If it's me, I'm just trying to figure out if I should put 1 Nicol Bolas in red-black.
Probably. Or you're going to have some sort of Evolving Wilds or Aether Hub?
No, maybe. I would only have Aether Hub if I wanted to have 1 Nicol Bolas.
Well, you're going to have to find a way to cast it.
It would be the Aether Hub.
Oh, the triple land is actually probably great in that deck.
I don't know, man. I don't think so.
No? I'm putting the triple land in mono white, so that's where my
I mean, dude, when you have a horse head, a lot of things look a little different.
Look, you wake up, you turn to your left, there's a horse head in your bed. You know you did something wrong.
No, I don't know.
Somebody gets a music contract.
Yeah. I don't know. Anything else? Anywhere else you want to hit, or are you going to tell me what's in this horse tribal deck? Or are you slow rolling this one?
I mean, I don't have I haven't done a whole lot of testing yet. I've just been thinking about it. There's 3 different directions I would think about going: mono white, black white, and green white. Green white's probably gonna be dead to start because most of the cards that I want to play are just I'm gonna play all these green enablers and then just white creatures. But this doesn't make any sense probably. But I was well, what if I traverse the Uvenwald for my horse tribal? That'd be pretty cool. And it's pretty facile to get Delirium because you got Cast Out and all the words that you can imagine, but it just probably ends up being a deck that's too slow to deal with mono red. Black white, you could play cards like Kalitas, Ailey. What's the name of the 3 casting cost Eidolon that drains instead of just nugging for 2?
Yeah,
I like those cards because they give you the opportunity to trigger on the opponent's turn. But
Eidolon? Wait a minute.
The black-white 1 guy, he Eidolons your opponent, but he drains for 2 instead of...
Every time you play an enchantment?
No, every time they play a non-creature spell.
That's what the word Eidolon means to you?
That's what it means to me.
Could you give me an example out of, I don't know, any of the Eidolons?
Eidolon of the Great Revel.
That's... Oh, my God. Dude, Eidolon... Okay. Anyway, yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe. Are you sure that, that what you were looking... That what you're really about is that victory condition is enough better that it's worth playing that instead of, the good interaction?
So, I think my true heart is the mono white version. And that, I think I'm going to lean on Authority of the Councils. But I really like the idea of playing Eldrazi Displacer in this deck. You can take advantage of the colorless from the triple land, for example, to help get it online. Lone Rider, because I think Eldrazi Displacer is, if not inevitable, if it's unmolested, it can just get so much done for you. It's good against token creatures, obviously. Be buddies going big. If you're playing against a horse tribal mirror match, it can help deal with their horses.
Imagine if you were playing red-black and you just went Pia Noir or Liliana the Last Hope into Kalitas or Chandra, into Glorybringer or Goblin Darkdweller, and you just had a bunch of Braids, Magma Sprays, Grasp of Darkness, Collective Brutality, and Doomfall.
But how could that deck ever gain 50 life?
Why would you need 50 life?
I don't know, so I could have 49 horses.
That's not even how the math works. All right, well, thank you guys for joining us. We really appreciate it. We're Top Level Podcast. We're totally not crazy, those of us who are.
I think our craziness is one of our assets. If you said before Worlds 2007, I'm going to Sleepy Land a bunch of Dragon Storms into day 3, people would be like, what? Hideaway? What are you talking about? Somebody has to think about it first before everybody realizes.
I'm not judging. I'm just saying I appreciate everybody for tuning in.
I'm just saying.
I'm also saying
getting cast for being discarded from a wild mongrel.
Maybe. All right, we're. I feel like we're both jet lagged out of our mind, and neither one of us is traveling.
Fair enough.
All right. Follow us everywhere.
Everywhere.
Twitter, Patreon, Facebook, YouTube. Share us. All that. Patreon in particular. Help support the show. Or, don't. But you know what? You probably should because we're rad. Even if it's sharing. But we do want to give a special shout-out this week.
Yes, a shout-out to Jason Garcia Trevino from Patreon. Thanks so much, Jason.
Yeah, thanks, man.
And then, just share, follow, etc. iTunes, if you want to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss it, so you'll never miss this, horse tribal banter we've got at the end. That would be another thing you could do. So, nay! All right, Patrick.
All right. See you next week, man.
All right.
Life didn't work so great. Tried to play dredge, it's a jailer hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis state. Lost a lot of friends, got left behind. Had to find a way not to lose my mind.